Greetings. My name is Louis Molina, and I'm the host of the Life Puro podcast. Today, I sit down and speak to Christian Grimaldo, who is the GM for Radio Bar and the beer manager for Mid-City Beer Garden. Christian has an extensive experience in the bar scene in Baton Rouge. For those interested in purchasing cigars from us, check out our sponsor at shop.habanaport.com and look at the item description for a free shipping discount. Thanks for listening.
I ended up being like a power listener on Spotify, like top 2 or 3%, just because I listen to so much media all day. Because luckily, I have enough free time during the day, like where I work autonomously, where I just can listen to pods all day. So if I listen to a little bit of music, not as much as I used to when I was younger, but a lot of podcasts. Yeah. So I kind of get the flow, but it's still a little nerve wracking. I've been on the news or whatever, but I haven't been like interviewed,
You've been on the news? Oh, like.
Yeah, just like when COVID happened, they were asking us at Beer Garden how.
Okay.
Yeah, or.
How you're dealing with the situation?
Yeah, like how are people listening with masks and stuff like that. I don't remember exactly how they phrased it, but.
Were you at Mid-City Beer Garden when they first opened? Were you with them since day one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
when did they open? I forget now. Was it right before the pandemic?
2019.
Okay.
Because it was that Joe Burrow year.
Oh. Okay.
So we opened in September. No. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, in the fall of 2019 sometime.
Fall of 2019. We had the historic run with football, so we rode that and being new and open and just fun. And then it all came crashing down in March. So it's just
crazy.
like, yeah. So
you guys had like a little bit of peaceful time before COVID, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
Peaceful in that, like, non-COVID related issues or dynamics.
Yes. So it was...
and it was during the Joe Burrow
championship
season.
I'm a freak. Like, I love... Like, that's why I'm in Baton Rouge. So, like, not specifically I was like, I'm going to play football, but just, like, I was looking at schools and, like, okay, LSU has an awesome football program. 4 hours from home. Like, I'll go check it out.
Where'd you grow up?
Galveston, Texas.
Okay.
So, right outside of Houston, 45 minutes south, little island, beach town, cool place to grow up.
Yeah, I've been in Galveston years ago. I forget, maybe late 90s.
It's different
nice.
now.
Okay.
Just because, one, like, obviously, passage of time, but we had that big hurricane in 2009. And so a bunch of people left. Same thing that happened in New Orleans, where like some people
Katrina,
left. Some people invested and got in at the right time. And Tillman Fertitta, big billionaire.
Yeah,
he's from Galveston. I don't know if he went to high school there or whatever, but everyone always claims him. And he owns a San Luis and Landry's and like a bunch of stuff down there. And he bought
the Houston Rockets, right?
Yeah, he owns. And so he bought in a lot and invested a lot, and now it's kind of. I don't know. They're about to get a Margaritaville.
In Galveston?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're my buddy who lives in LA. We text about Galveston and what's going on, and just because we're both not from there anymore, don't live there anymore, and we're like, oh, it's changing so much. Like this might be the end of people like just living there, and it might become like a more vacation town.
More of like a Destin, Florida.
Yeah.
What happened at Destin? Yeah.
That's always been my pride, I guess, of Galveston is. You go to Gulf Shores or you go to Destin or you go wherever, and there's not much of a town there. It's like it's a beach and it's
quaint,
nice,
quiet. Yeah.
Yes, but there's
I love that.
Galveston has like a city and people that live there and industry and like all this stuff. It's teeny tiny. It's 45,000 people, but it still had stuff going on. And I always was like, okay, cool. We're a little more fleshed out than a little, beach town. And now it's like, oh, we're just becoming a little beach town, Schlitterbahn and all that stuff. So it's cool. Oh. I still enjoy going back. It's a fun place to live and see my family, and I miss the water, but yeah, this is home now.
What is the colors of the waters there? Oh. It's not like Destin, is it?
No.
But I'm sure it's better than like, say, Lake Charles or the beaches down there.
Well, it gets that bad.
Okay.
The story that my grandfather always says is that it was great in blue water and just like Pensacola or whatever. Oh, and then they dredged the Mississippi to open it up for more commercial stuff. And then the route of the water changed, and it changed Galveston's, all their beach. So we blame it on Louisiana, but I don't really know. I mean, I'm not a oceanographer or whatever, so who knows? But it seems like that was a big change. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And then of course Charles Barkley dunked all over us on TNT recently.
What'd he say? I didn't hear that.
I think someone got eliminated. I can't remember who it was. And he was like, it was the Pelicans. And he was like, oh, y'all going to send him to Cabo or whatever? He goes, oh, not these boys. They need to go to Galveston. And it was like, what? And he's like, yeah, I wouldn't get in that water down there and just dunk. But he played for the Rockets, so he probably went down there a few times and he was like, well, this isn't Hawaii. And it's like, yeah, well, we're in Texas. It's not quite the same. But
man, I wonder, like, speaking of the colors of the waters, I guess if you go back far enough in history, even to like, you know, pre-Columbus, I guess all those waters must have been like blue. Maybe
I don't know.
Yeah. I'm sure some historian or scientist maybe look at that.
Yeah, I mean, the Gulf, it's all like Mississippi runs into it, so I'm sure that there's always been silt deposit, but it's I don't know. It's the Gulf Coast is a very special, like, I don't think I'll ever move from here. I love living in this area, and like what we give up in water, I'm glad we get back in charm and everything else that we have, because it's a great place to live. The people here are awesome. So, yeah. I
know. I was having this kind of the same discussion with someone just recently that, you know, people here could move elsewhere, right? Because we have a lot of problems. Yeah. Let's be honest. But, I mean, the positive takeaway, though, is the people, the culture, the food. I mean, there's just other good, like, intangibles.
Well, what is it? It always we always lose in everything or win in everything, the worst everything, and then it's always top 5 happiest places in America, and it's so interesting, that dichotomy, because it's like I don't know, people don't seem miserable around here. It seems like people are having good lives or whatever. I know that we're not like booming with industry all the time and annoying stuff happens, but it's still like people seem happy. At the grocery store, it's not like.
But I think like every like business entity that does their part, like when Mid-City Beer Garden opened up, it's just another positive to the quality of life column. You know, new businesses popping up that are really introducing some cool things. It's just enhancing, I guess, the aspects of living, you know, the good aspects of living in Baton Rouge.
Oh yeah, and credit to the owners and their vision, and like especially with Radio Bar, where like they were on an island, like it wasn't the bohemian area that it was whenever they started. You know, they always say there was some
kind of a war zone there, huh?
Yeah, I mean, same thing y'all went through here, where it's like people breaking in, using drugs, doing whatever. It's like, yeah, that was what this building was, and now all of a sudden it's a thriving business.
Did Sam tell you some of those stories?
Yeah,
dude. I mean, when we signed the lease and then started like the demoing work, this backspace, you walk through the private lounge, like some bum had like broken in and was living here, and we saw evidence of him shooting up. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah, it's super sad, but it's like you have to have that vision to see beyond the rough outer shell and say like, okay, I can see this being my second home for the next 10, 15, 20 years. Hopefully longer than that.
Yeah, we put the improvements in, so now it's like all cleaned up.
Yeah, dude, this is your house now. I mean, it's your place. So
no, we're happy with it, especially compared to the previous location we were in, which we're not bad mouthing it. Like, it served its purpose. That's where we went when we first moved to Baton Rouge, or opened up the Baton Rouge location. It was just the right size for us, so we can kind of grow the business slowly and expand, you know, from there.
And I wouldn't know you guys if y'all weren't right there, because I was at the Bulldog at the time. So that's how our relationship started.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
So Sam would come over and have a couple beers, and we just got to talking. He's like, do you like smoking cigars? I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, all right, let's try some out. And, you know, been friends ever since. It's, again, a Baton Rouge happy story. Like, good people, good businesses, local businesses right next door to each other, and friendships. And,
exactly. So I'm going to light up a cigar.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Don't feel pressured. If you want to cut and light,
do you
feel
have a
free.
punch?
Oh, man.
I'm not a snob or anything, but that's what I usually use.
No, I say, oh, man, because I've been meaning to bring in a punch or a V cutter, too, for those options. Do you want me to, or you got it? Yeah. But you like the punch, huh?
Yeah.
Is that your favorite style of cutter?
My father-in-law, like I told you before, he's kind of supported my cigar interest, and he got me a nice little lighter with a punch and a humidor and all that stuff. So I don't smoke them as often as I'd like, but
But he's the one. Your grandfather was the one who introduce you into the culture of cigar smoking?
No, my father-in-law, my wife's
Oh.
father. But he, like I said, it was really Sam.
Okay. Yeah, him coming over.
Mhm. Or
Yeah.
my father-in-law, none of his other son-in-laws or his son or stepsons, none of them are really into cigars.
Okay.
And so when I was like, oh yeah, I like smoke, he's like, okay, try these 5, whatever, and really supported it. So that's who's gotten me.
Yeah, he gave you or inspired you to get into this world. Yeah, I always like asking people, that's one of the top questions I'll ask of any cigar smokers, how did you get into it? Because it is so niche. Only less than 1% of the population smokes cigars.
Well, growing up, it's like rich guys smoke cigars.
That's a perception.
Yeah.
And that still is a perception. Yeah.
And it is a, just like anything else, whiskey or beer or wine or whatever, there's a barrier to entry, but you can smoke regularly if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Sam said earlier, having a kid, not as much time to sit outside for 20 minutes.
Yeah. So you and Sam are, I guess, new parents. How many kids do you have?
I have one, and I have one on the way. I have a 2-year-old, and
2 year and another one on the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm not 2 years. I feel like by that time you feel like you're a good parent, but it still surprises you every day.
Every day's a learning experience, huh?
It's a lot, but it's fun, and my wife's a super mom, so that always helps.
Yeah. Oh yeah, having the right partner, I'm sure.
Mhm.
But I ask, in regards to cigar smoking, it's always curious, how people got into this activity, because it's not like cigarettes or any other tobacco product in that, there's no addictive component, right?
Mhm.
This is the first cigar I had, since this morning, and it's an afternoon. I mean, I can go back to back all day if I wanted to, but when I'm busy, I can put it down and I don't need it.
Yeah.
It's just when I'm looking forward to that occasion. So it's not addictive, right?
Yeah.
Although a lot of people might argue that. And because it's such a small community, people either get introduced to it by a relative or a good friend, but rarely is it someone just out of the blue decides you know what, I'm going to try a cigar. There's always some sort of influence
Sure.
factor, right? So I always found that curious. But I also do notice that a lot of first time cigar smokers are in your phase of life. When you start building that family, you stop going out all the time, unless in your case
Sure.
that's your job. But other than that, people just kind of settle and become more homebodies. This is
Yeah.
that activity where you can still use and engage in and still maintain good sobriety and not get bogged down by whether it's I tell people it's almost like taking a drug without getting the drug effects, right? So you're not going to get hallucinations or anything like that, or stoned. You can't get drunk on smoking too many cigars. You can still drive, right?
Yeah.
So to me that I find those are the benefits of cigar smoking, where it kind of forces you to relax and slow down and maintain your sobriety,
I think it's definitely, you put more thought into smoking a cigar than you do other vices, I guess. And I think as you get older, you don't drink whiskey and Coke. You sit there and have a whiskey neat or with a rock. And
right.
Cigars, definitely a little more of an indulgence, a little more, you feel a little more sophisticated.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, definitely a really cool hobby. And for me, it just translated so well because I was developing my palate for beer and trying to figure out what I liked and the flavors and different, I guess regions and styles and all that stuff. And then cigars were oh, okay, you can do this in smoking form too,
That's right.
where there's a little more.
Yeah, it translates over too.
Yeah. Marlboro or
Marlboro.
Yeah, that one's
that's
tough.
a mouth. I know.
Camel, those guys, consistency. It tastes the same, the exact same every single time. This is a little more like wine, where it's you have a hot summer, your leaves are going to taste a little different than they did the year before or the year after. And I guess that's how stuff becomes so highly sought after, where it's oh, this 89 Fuente or 89 Cohiba, that's the one. That year was so
with
good.
vintages,
Yeah.
and different characteristics. So it's interesting you bring that up. in our industry, we don't really focus on those aspects like the wine industry does, right? They really focus on the conditions of like a particular harvest year because that makes that plays a factor into the final output of that crop, right? Especially with grapes. I guess, and I got to get more insight about this from insiders, but what I've kind of have come to the realization is that our industry really tries to maintain consistency.
Okay.
Right. And I guess they achieve that similar to how like a whiskey or distiller does their blending. Right. So the point is, no matter what year you smoke a Fuente or drink a certain like Macallan, the consumer can expect the same flavor profiles, right? Without variation. Whereas in the wine world, they kind of know that, oh, this, like you said, 89 Lafite raw shield is going to taste different than this 98, right? So our industry doesn't really focus on that.
Exactly the opposite.
But there are some lines where they actually do focus on those characteristics. So like Plasencia has one called the Cosecha series. Cosecha means harvest in Spanish. And they'll number the Cosecha. So they have the Cosecha 149, the 152. Because they've been in business for generations, that refers to like the 148th harvest or the 159th harvest or what. I forget all the numbers they have, but that's kind of like the point they're reinforcing are those like particular years, macro or microclimates and factors.
Yeah. I know hops definitely with craft beer and stuff, we have, I don't know, issues, I guess, where even something like super consistent, like a certain IPA or anything, it tastes different often.
Oh, and it's because of the hops?
Yeah, or they'll change the hop bills sometimes just because one's more expensive or one's, and it's not something that the brewery's gonna come out and be like advertise, like, oh yeah, we changed the hops in this or whatever. But
yeah, they don't want to advertise anything that might be viewed as something like, wait, there's an inconsistency now.
Yeah.
Or something that they veered from.
But I guess maybe people are a little more superstitious in that stuff than in beer than they are in other, because it's just, I always joke, there's a certain Facebook group that is local beer focused, and I always joke if it was allocated and they didn't get it, it's overrated. But if they got it, it's the best thing ever. So if they got to try it, it's amazing. And if they didn't get to try it, well, it sucked anyway.
That's funny you mentioned that dynamic, because I think that's the same thing in our world, especially with Cuban cigars, right? So as you probably know, the Cuban embargo has been in place in the United States since when they signed, I think in 63 or 62. So I feel like there are some retailers in this country that kind of malign Cuban cigars because we can't get it, right? We can't sell it. So why talk about them? Why? So therefore dismiss them. And maybe it's converse situation in like in the international market. A lot of international retailers don't really get what we get as American consumers, and they only get Cubans because obviously Cubans can be sold anywhere outside the borders of the U.S. So I've always wondered about that. Or if someone has a critique, is it really valid? Is it really true? Like you don't have a bias with like those kind of factors, right?
Well, it's so subjective. I think that's what's awesome really about any kind of, I guess, consumable is like you might be right, but
it's still an opinion.
Yeah, like,
still like you can't objectively.
Yeah, I like Ghost Machine, you like Jucifer, or you like Commotion or whatever. Like, okay, like neither of us are wrong, so it is.
That's right. Yeah, and that's where debates can erupt or friction between like opposing viewpoints.
Yeah, somebody might win a Great American Beer Fest gold medal or whatever, and that's quantifying it in some way. But ultimately, it comes down to it. Like, if it's the beer you enjoy, doesn't really matter. But that's beer and cigars and wine, and it's also
very similar.
It's so fun. Yeah, it's just so much more fun than staplers or adhesives.
Than like a commodity, right?
Yeah, like
it's the same thing.
We're operating on the fringes of actual industry, I feel sometimes, but it's a fun industry to be in.
Now so you're still the beer manager at Mid City Beer Garden?
Yeah.
What does that mean though?
I order and select all the beers that come in. There's some that obviously they're layups, Miller Lite, whatever. But
That's so standard, right?
Yes.
Like I guess every bar, because I'm not in the bar business,
Mhm.
but I assume like every bar kind of has to have those standards. Or
Yeah,
what would you? How would you classify those beers or products?
yeah, we call them domestics. The industry calls them, what is it?
Mass domesticates?
No, they call it's a funny premium lights,
Oh,
because
really?
they don't want to discourage.
Is there a negative bias with that term domestic?
I
now?
think so.
Yeah,
I think they shy away from it, but
or they think there's a negative.
yeah. Well, I mean, domestic. Juicifer's domestic. It's from Louisiana. It's from America.
It's a microbrewery,
yeah,
right?
but
technically it's domestic. Yeah.
It's not an import. So it kind of they changed their verbiage, and
That's
you know, when Miller Lite came out, craft beer wasn't as big of a thing. So it's now they have to differentiate themselves in some way. But it's yeah, they're very particular with their verbiage. I learned that on the sales side of things, and but yeah, I opened Mid City with those guys. I was doing the bar, managing front of house, running shifts, like that kind of stuff. And now that I'm at the radio bar, I kind of do all the front of house managing over there, and then do just ordering and buying and little maintenance and cleaning lines and stuff, but mostly just buying the beer over there, which is great. I love it.
Is there, and you don't have to explain, but like, is there a conflict working for two different bars?
Same owners.
Oh, okay.
2/3 of the beer garden guys.
Yep.
So
okay.
that's what's
so obviously
been nice.
like both parties knew, or both entities knew, because they're owned by same maybe parent. Okay.
And it's enough work where I feel like they're happy to have a third party do it, but not a ton of work where I don't feel like I could handle radio. I think if I started to compromise radio a little bit, we'd have a discussion.
Yeah, everyone had to like come to the table and realize, all right, what's going on? Like, okay.
Yeah. So I've been lucky, like, in them giving me enough autonomy to do two things, and buying has always kind of been probably the thing that I've coveted the most. When I was working at, Sam said I was running Wrong Iron. I was like, no, I was one of 3 managers. I said that specifically because I wasn't buying there. So if I was buying the beer there, I might have not left. But
Where's Wrought Iron?
It's in New Orleans.
Okay, I thought so.
It's the same guys that did the Bulldog initially. I was working with them, and they had an opening down there. I took it, and I was down there for 6 months, 8 months, something like that. And then I'd interviewed for Beer Garden right before I started with them. And then Beer Garden called. We're like, hey, what do you think? I actually went in to tell them no, because my wife's from Metairie and we were excited to be in New Orleans or whatever. And Kelly Paxton, one of my bosses over there, she was like, what do you think? And I couldn't tell her no. I was like, I'm your guy.
Oh,
so
oh no.
Definitely the right choice.
Yeah.
Definitely benefited me down the line. But yeah, I couldn't say no to Kelly, and here we are.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So can you explain like the layout of Mid City Beer Garden, especially for people who aren't from Baton Rouge or listening from outside the state? What kind of bar is this? What is this?
It is an indoor-outdoor space, big panel glass windows that we can fold and that are accordion style. And it is a tap room, I think, first and foremost, and then, kind of a brew pub, gastro pub kind of vibe. Okay. Pretzels and burgers and that kind of stuff. But the beer's nice front and center, big wall, all the chalkboards with the different breweries and names of beers on there. And it's just really cool, beautiful place. And yeah, walking in there when it's halfway finished or 3/4 of the way finished in such a beautiful space, I was like, I have to do this. This is a no-brainer. Yeah,
and to reinforce that, I mean, I remember when it was being built out and the first time I went there, man, the space is just so premium. Like, it's really a beautiful space. It's not just a junky dive bar or whatever. It's just like, and I'm sure there are people maybe in your industry who are operators who say they're one thing, but when you go there and you look at the space, it looks totally different. Like, it's not what they say they are. Mm. Is that valid? Like, let's say like I have a junky bar, but I want to maybe spruce it up and say, oh, I'm a gastropub. Then like when you go in as a consumer, you're like, dude, this is like a dive bar. This like sucks. Like, it's dirty. It's horribly run.
I think here in Louisiana, you can't really get away with it. That's one thing. All the local restaurants and bars and around here, they're pretty kick ass. Yeah. And
the competition's so fierce.
If you don't have good food or you don't have good service or whatever, people take their business elsewhere. So it keeps you on your toes. It keeps you, wanting to be as good as you possibly can at all aspects of the business. And I don't think you really get away with it. but I'm sure there are people that try.
But I guess my point in bringing this up is you guys really are premium you're offering a premium product and experience.
Yeah. They
with the layout, the beautiful garden, the outdoor space.
They pride themselves in their service first and foremost too. So I think I always tell, my joke was too, the building does all the heavy lifting. We're just hanging out because it's such a beautiful space. But I'm very, very happy to be part of that group because their excellence is the standard. Yeah. So it's a nice group to be a part of.
So you are involved in making the major decisions for what gets stocked in terms of the beer component?
Yeah. Okay. So I buy, obviously if one of the owners wants something in particular, it's going to get on the thing. But for the most part, I have autonomy on decisions on whatever beer comes into the market. I've really good relationship with all the distributors. So I've been lucky enough to get some nice stuff in there. And, with my foundation in Bulldog, they taught me a lot about classic craft and international beers and stuff like that I did not have the education on. I've worked at Bogey's before and Barcadia briefly, and they taught me a lot over there. So it helped flesh out our menu, and it's been a lot of fun. Love buying beer and building menus, and it's probably the thing I missed the most when I was in sales is building menus. It's the best.
Yeah.
You're
part of like the creation or creative process.
Well, just
right. Developing a particular menu.
Beer garden is not your classic like beer bar in the sense of the clientele at a beer bar looks like me and you. It's men, beards and beer bellies and like hanging out and drinking, this IPA and this hot profile. We get a lot of mixed bag, young people, women, like it's such a beautiful space. People love to Instagram there. So we get all walks. So it's so great whenever someone's like, I don't like beer. And I'm like, what kind of beer do you drink? And they're like, oh, I've had domestics and whatever. I'm like, what do you like? Wine? Do you like cocktails? Like, what else do you like to drink? And they're like, oh, I like, fruity stuff. I'm like, try this fruited sour. Try this, Saison or whatever. And when someone's like, oh, I actually like that. It's the best. Yeah. It's, I don't know. The fulfillment you get out of making people's experience better is a lot.
And changing their like viewpoint of like a particular issue. Like, I don't like beer. You don't have a beer that I'm going to like. And then you enlightening them like, well, let's try this out.
Yeah.
And then they have that like positive reaction.
Yeah. And like you said, there's no wrong answers. It's just, have you tried everything? I don't think so. I haven't tried everything. So you probably haven't. So try this one. Speaking of, I usually have a beer with my cigar. Would you like to join me, or is it too early for you?
Absolutely. Cool.
Okay. So I brought mostly lagers.
Okay.
But, I brought St. Arnold Summer Pils, which is just a light Pilsner, easy drinking. I brought a coffee brown, and then I brought a blue corn Pilsner from Jester King out of Austin.
Wow.
Super cool.
I'm not familiar with that.
Super cool brewery. I don't know what this one's taste like. I know the other two are good. So,
okay. I'll leave it up to you. I'm down for whatever. Me personally with cigar. So this is maybe a good topic about cigar pairing with beer. A lot of people don't think about pairing a beer with a cigar. They think about like the spirits, right? The brown spirits, whether it's bourbon or rum. But no, there are beers that you could definitely pair with a cigar. Yeah, I'll try that out.
Yeah, this is easy drinking. So.
Oh, okay. So St. Arnold, yeah.
Yeah, out of Houston, so a little hometown fave. And I'd say this is the first craft beer I had that made me like, okay, beer can be a little different. So this one's a little special to me.
Okay.
But cheers.
Yeah, cheers, man. That's awesome. So, yeah, I'm familiar with St. Arnold.
Yeah, just easy drinking.
Yeah. And I think this would, I assume, is going to pair and hold well with your Arturo Fuente Hemingway. That's what you're smoking for those keeping score at home.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, because you mentioned you like the short story, which that's basically a larger or longer short story. The short story is a specific size in the Hemingway series. That is the classic. So it's a 7x48, I think. So it's basically a longer version of the short story.
And then I always I believe it's called the gauge.
Yeah, the ring gauge, yeah.
So just because.
Very thin, elegant. That's more of a European sensibility kind of
just preference. A little easier, I don't feel like I have a big old stick in my mouth. It's just something nice, easy. And the short stories, you can smoke one of those in 20 minutes. So it's perfect sneaky cigar. You know, get one real fast. But yeah,
but
I'm enjoying this.
I think that will hold up very well with this St. Arnold Summer Pils.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's a Houston origin brewery, right?
Yeah. One of the older craft breweries in the country. I don't think, it's not as old as Yingling or something, but they were in that early 70s, I believe, when Abita and them came out. And just like a really
like early.
Yeah, I mean, St. Arnold might be a little bit younger.
Microbreweries.
Might be a little bit younger. I might be misinforming people, but yeah, they've been out longer than I've been drinking beer. And so the lawnmower is really famous, and but this was one of my favorites. The can also is just so cool.
Yeah, that is nice. Yeah, good color scheme for the summer, kind of bright, reinforcing the fun.
You don't drink beer often with it? I've seen people say they drink Dr. Pepper or coffee or whatever. Yeah, so. No,
I'm saying I feel like there are a lot of cigar smokers that don't consider beer as a pairing with a cigar.
Okay.
They'll usually consider the bourbons or the rums, cognac. One of the old classic pairings in our industry is with a cigar is with port wine. I don't know if you are familiar with a lot of ports.
It's like a fortified,
a fortified wine
in barrels. I think they age it in barrels.
I forget they're aged in barrels. I think the way the process works, and I'm not 100%. They basically start out making a wine, right? So they ferment it, and I think at one point during the fermenting process, they stop it by adding another component, and I don't know if it's like a sweetener. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah. Some other like spirit, I guess. So it's and then they age it like in barrels, I think, and basically it's a sweeter kind of wine.
Okay.
And it's a wine that you typically would have like after dinner, so like more of a digestif.
Dessert.
Yeah, or dessert wine. You see it like in a lot of high-end restaurants, they'll have a port menu alongside the dessert menu. But port wine for like the classic cigar smoker, that's like the ultimate drink to pair with a cigar.
Okay.
So anything sweet, but like to your point, like some people even will say Dr. Pepper or Coca-Cola. Yeah. Anything sweet can work well with a cigar.
Troll r/cigars a little bit, so
nice.
People will say, Dr. Pepper, or, I like Mr. Pibb or whatever, and I'm like, I actually like a nice beer usually.
Yeah.
But I think that might just be my background too. So
right, you have a little bias for that.
Yeah, a little bias.
Yeah, but I tell people, just like I'm sure you've heard the same kind of rhetoric in your industry, it's really personal preference. It's a lot of it's experimental too. Like I didn't know if this cigar would pair with this beer, but I'm just going to try it. Why not? And if it clashes, all right, I know not to do that again. But if it works, complementary kind of pairing going on, then all right, that's cool. Then you can make that recommendation.
Yeah. Experimentation is the birth of innovation, whatever. So, definitely all preference to the. Sorry,
you're good.
See with you. But yeah, I'd like to say there's a beer that goes with everything.
Absolutely, yeah. And then I also like stouts.
Okay,
stouts can be a good.
We'll try this coffee one next, and I think you'd like that.
Usually that would be like if I only had a choice with these three, I would have just gone to the coffee stout because I found again like that kind of creamy, like typically creamy, more chocolatey, I guess, forward profile for that kind of beer works with a lot of cigars, especially like your darker cigars.
Yeah, those roasty, toasty notes and all that stuff. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But I feel like I've had cigars. They're all over the place the same way.
They are,
so
there's so much variety in flavor profiles and strengths.
I seen like the milder ones, but I could definitely see one going well with like a big chocolate stout or something like that. So yeah, I'd try that one.
And that's, to me, the cool thing, kind of like what you've alluded to with beer, is just the variety of flavor profiles. And I will use that kind of same phrase to beginners that there's a cigar out there for everyone. It's just a matter of like figuring out, all right, let's go on this journey and sample different cigars, whether it be from different countries, different wrapper types, different strengths. And it might take a minute for, the beginner who's willing to give it a chance on this journey to figure out what they like. You know?
I feel like it's a high barrier to entry or higher barrier to entry than, cigarettes or cigarillos or whatever else. And it's kind of.
And what do you mean? Why? What do you think what that is? Is it price point maybe?
I think it's a little bit of price point. I don't think it's all price point, but like you said before, people are scared to come across uneducated or scared to educate themselves on stuff or a little hesitant or reticent. Like, I think that's why people stick to the domestics a lot or that kind of stuff.
Comfort in the...
Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, like, not everybody's adventurous, but like I said, I thought it was a fancy guy thing. And then you have a couple and you're like, no, it's just an everybody thing. It's
it really is. Yeah.
It's a enjoyable, relaxing thing. So,
that's the thing. It's an affordable luxury.
Yes.
Like even $5, most people can spare $5.
In comparison to like whiskey or wine, for sure. I think that's why I was attracted to beer too, because, I don't have thousands of dollars to go and bulk up a whiskey collection. Or wine, a wine cellar, or, so beer, you can go and get a $20 six pack and try it out and see, oh, this is what beer tastes like in Texas or in Germany or in Belgium or in, France, whatever. And it's, I do feel like it's a little more approachable, which is, makes it a little more fun.
And I agree with you on that, with the pricing especially. So it really is, there isn't as high of a barrier to entry, but I've found a lot of beginners who walk through our doors and, our goal is to like make them feel comfortable because there is this dynamic that can occur in our industry of like an elitist attitude coming from some shopkeeps. And I experienced this growing up, or when I was 18, I went to my first store back in Metairie. I mean, they're no longer around, but I felt like I got the poor treatment, just because I was a young kid. They didn't want to deal with me. Maybe they sized me up and said, oh, he can't afford anything, which they were right. But like, I mean, I just didn't feel like welcome. So I can see how that can turn off any like curious cigar person, and they'll assume like, oh man, this whole industry's like this, and I'm just not even gonna give the industry a chance.
I feel like
that can be bad for every shop owner in the country, right?
Oh yeah, if one guy's a douche.
Yeah.
But I felt like that about cocktail bars forever, which is kind of funny now that I'm at radio. But it's, especially being, I worked in Tigerland for years, and then I worked at the Bulldog, which is more of like a beer tender kind of job.
Yeah.
I'd go to cocktail bars and they'd be like, you don't know what a paper plane is? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. So I definitely
give that snooty.
I got turned off a little bit, but now I'm a little more educated, a little more in that world, and
you have confidence.
Yeah, a little more confidence.
But still, like I guess that's why a lot of people have positive experiences here. That's something I try to reinforce to our staff is, look, don't make anyone feel like intimidated. I love talking to beginners, and there's no stupid question here because I was on that side before and I got the poor treatment. So when, I entered this as an career, I wanted to do the opposite and make everyone feel welcome. And because it is like such a small niche industry, if you're not, taught by maybe a family member to go out on your own, that's quite a leap, right? That has to be a person that's very experimental, doesn't care, and most of us aren't built like that. We need to be like, handheld to whatever like hobby or interest most of the time.
Yeah, I'm sure you get the odd person that's like, I decided I wanted to start smoking cigars today.
Yeah,
but most of the time it's like, oh, my dad or my grandpa or whoever, and for sure, I like I said, if it wasn't for Sam and even you guys, like, just teaching me a little bit and me feeling comfortable, like, oh, I'm going to see my friends more than I'm going to the cigar shop, then I don't know, I probably wouldn't have been as interested, but y'all did that for sure. It made me feel welcome and made me feel not too out of my depth,
right?
Which is a nice feeling.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. That's awesome. So walk me through the process of your buying process. Like, how do you decide what beers you want to offer, like on the rotation or on the menu? I know there are some that probably have like a permanent slot, right? Like what do you call them? Not the domestics, but the like I guess the Millers and the Budweisers of the world.
The premium lights.
Oh, premium lights.
Yeah, like we have 4, I'd say, really 12 or so that don't ever change. Really.
Okay.
Juicifer, Ghost of the Machine, couple of the locals, Purple Haze, that kind of stuff. But I'd say out of the 54, 55 beers that we have on tap, 35 of them at any time are different than they were the week before. So we had the benefit of rolling through a good bit of beer. And really the breweries and the distributors do a good job of curating everything for you. And then a lot of stuff is seasonal. Like this is the summer pills, so
Yeah, that's
obviously, yeah, it's not going to come out in the fall. So a lot of that stuff is dictated just by the time of the year. But really, it's just kind of knowing your audience and who's coming there a lot. And we're a little more sour heavy than I think I would have been at another bar. And IPAs have been a little more out of vogue than they were 5 or 6 years ago. So I'm a little more crispy beers. It's so hot down here. I try to take that in consideration. We know we don't have a ton of stouts on right now or dark, lagers or anything like that. But it's Baton Rouge is a great palate, and they people are interested in new beers and trying new stuff. So we're really lucky with that people are adventurous and that the local breweries have conditioned people in the way that they're like, oh, it's sour, a barley wine, something cool. Like, yeah, it's from Gnarly Barley. I'll try it out. Like, so it's been great. This is fun.
Do you have what kind of barley wine have you carried or want to carry?
I'm sure we've had the Hypnotic or Hypno. I can't remember exactly what it's called, unfortunately.
Because and I'm asking that because during my college days, showing you my age, over 20 years ago, my college mates and I, we got into beers back then, right? In the early 2000s. And barley wines back then, at least, I went to school in Indiana. We didn't really see too much barley wine, but it always interested me when I did see a barley wine. Because what is it? That's like the heavier,
it's like
a higher
old style
alcohol content
high ABV,
beer.
Very herby and I wouldn't say floral, but kind of funky. Some of those deeper caramel flavors and that kind of stuff. It is not your intro beer. It is definitely a little more sophisticated. You definitely, if you hadn't had, a good amount of craft beer or non-domestic beer, it probably
wouldn't.
It would be a shocking, but European stuff kind of fell out of vogue for at least a little bit. You said early 2000s is when you really started drinking craft beer. That's a good time to get into it, I think.
Yeah. And I went, back then we had access to Three Floyds Brewery.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of them?
Yeah.
Because they're still not in Louisiana, right?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. And they were back then regarded as one of the beer nerds beers.
Yeah. And I think they still are. I mean,
they still are.
Yeah. I always call them the OGs, the Sierra Nevadas. And
I was going to say Sierra Nevada would definitely be in that circle. And they have the Bigfoot.
Yes.
Is that their barley wine? Yeah.
They have Bigfoot. I don't know if we've ever had Bigfoot at Beer Garden. Probably not. I know we had it at Bulldog, and that's really where a lot of the old style beers. But the industry's changed so much since I started working in it. I mean,
so IPAs aren't in because that was always a beer nerds.
They're still
genre,
in,
right?
But they're not in the same way when I started at Bulldog, where if a new one came out, they're just flying off the shelf. We still go through them. People still drink them, but it's not the same. And breweries aren't brewing them the same clip that they were at one point. But I think people, especially the locals around here, are a little more focused on everyday drinkers now, where not so much specialty stuff, and they'll do quarterly specialty stuff instead of, it used to be monthly or every couple weeks or whatever. They'll have a new or seasonal couple every quarter, and then it slowed down a little bit. I was telling Sam before.
So what is it now then? The beer nerds?
Crispy. So
crispy?
This.
Okay, you're saying yeah.
I think it's gone full circle where when it started, people wanted different stuff than just crispy. And then it gets to IPAs and, sours were really, really big for a while, especially lacto fermented stuff. And then now I think the brewers have a little more say, and brewers love crispy beers because you can't hide anything. If you have a marshmallow chocolate stout, you can hide everything, and they call them adjuncts, the different flavoring stuff.
Okay.
But with a crispy lager, it's just your beer. So if it doesn't taste good standalone, then people know. Where the base beer of that super fruity whatever, it can be hidden a little bit more.
Okay.
But that's just pure beer snobbery.
No, I think that same principle applies to the cigar world because we have the category of the handmade flavored cigars. And I feel like a lot of those blends use inferior tobacco, but the smoker may not even realize it because it's it has those adjuncts, right? Those
Mhm.
flavoring components, whether it's honey or vanilla. So they can kind of get away with it. Whereas I guess maybe to use the same analogy, maybe like a traditional mild cigar, like it's got to be on point.
Mhm.
Otherwise, like the smoker can really see through everything. So if it's poor quality, like you can tell. And if it's not, like you can tell it's very good quality.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's the appropriate analogy
I think so.
for our industry. Yeah.
I know, like you were talking about consistency with the cigars earlier, like consistency is a brewer's pride too. So it's like, if you can get it right, exactly, tasting this can tastes like that can tastes like another 6-pack, tastes like the other half barrel keg that they sent to some bar in Houston. Like they all have to taste the same. So I think it's consistency, and then like letting, like Skaterade, like there's nothing hiding anything in Skaterade. It's just what they call Italian Pilsner. Like it's just a beer. So if it tastes a little funky, or they didn't use the right hop, or they didn't use the right mash, or I'm sorry, I'm thinking whiskey, malt, then it shows. So I think younger breweries probably will do a little more of the adjunct stuff until they get their systems down right, and then when they get a little bit into their own, they're like, okay, we're gonna make a nice crispy thing, and everybody's gonna love it.
Yeah.
Paradise Park, they all end up doing them, I think.
Yeah. What are some of your top selling beers right now?
At Radio Bar.
Okay, yeah, let's differentiate, because I guess you might have different, and I didn't even ask you
it's way
what
different.
radio bars out. You probably have different clientele.
Yes.
I've never actually been to radio bar, so can
Radio
you explain?
Bar.
Yeah, maybe let's go there first. What can you explain to me about radio bar, like how it's set up, what market you're catering to?
Sure, it's a cocktail bar, I think, first and foremost, and then a neighborhood bar secondly. So we're really lucky. We have a great group of regulars that live in the neighborhood. They come in, a couple times a week and hang out and keep our bartenders company. So we're, I'd say, 5 days a week a neighborhood bar, 2 days a week a little more of like a club lounge, cocktail bar, but fresh juice, and we do 8 original cocktails every season, and it's a little more of like a classic bar, where Beer Garden is more of a sit down. You can go get dinner there. We don't serve any food at Radio Bar. It's just
Okay.
booze. So it's just a different setup and a different vibe. And table service, I think, really changes the two. Like we do a little table service cocktail. Run around, make sure you get your drink, and we'll run you a beer or whatever. But it's not the same as a waitress that comes and checks on you every 5 minutes and like, hey, are y'all doing okay? Can I refill your water? That kind of thing. So 2 different clienteles. At Radio Bar, it's PBR. We sell PBR, and then I'd say the one that's creeping up the most over there is Modelo. So Modelo's been crushing it. But at Beer Garden, it's usually Juicifer. Juicifer, Ghost in the Machine. Okay. Paradise Park does well over there. But yeah, we have a good swath of beer drinkers over there, and it, like I said, the crowd's a little more, not eclectic, but a little more diverse, I guess, at Beer Garden. So we sell all kinds of different styles and stuff, which is great because it keeps it interesting and fresh. And I'm not too scared to try something that's a little funkier, a little bit more off the beaten path. The
crowd might be more accepting, or at least experimental, huh?
Where I think at radio we're lucky because people just think of us as part of their like day-to-day life and celebrating, and have good moments there. And I think people are a little less adventurous. They're a little more bread and butter over there, where it's like, hey, this is what I like to drink. They have Holy Roller here. They have, PBR. They have Modelo. We have soju and sake and that kind of stuff. And if that's what your poison is, then we have it, and hopefully have a good representation of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
even sake, huh?
Even sake, which we're getting to the
Are you
sake
seeing that
season.
Category increase in popularity?
Soju.
Just in general.
Soju, which is like a Korean rice wine. We sell a ton of that stuff. It's like 30% ABV, maybe a little bit higher than that. So almost like a liquor, but it's fortified rice wine, if I remember correctly. And
I never heard that category. Soju?
Yeah,
Soju?
it's new to me.
Okay.
But you take it like shots. So
Okay.
you sell a bottle, you and I could have 2 or 3 shots together. And I always tell people when they come to get their second one, I'm like, be careful.
Sure? Yeah.
Like, this is a
It'll
lot.
creep
So
up
if it's
on you.
just you, like, I wouldn't have a second one. Or if you're splitting it with your friend, like, this might be y'all's last one. But if it's 2 or 3 or 4 people, you take one shot each. It's not gonna kill you.
Yeah. Not gonna throw you over there.
Yeah, it's sneaky because it's so sweet and good and tasty, and people are just like, oh, I could drink this all day. It's like, can, but I wouldn't recommend it. But yeah, it's cool. Radio Bar's crowd is really accepting in their own way, and like they try a bunch of different stuff. We saw a little bit of craft beer over there, but like I said, people stick to their basics a little bit more. And at Beer Garden, like we could put a pickle beer on, you could put a like rice beer on, or a blueberry sour, or a chocolate stout, or whatever. And it seems the audience comes there and checks us out, and
they want to experiment.
Yeah, I want to be a place that beer drinkers want to come, that they're like, oh, they have that there, like I want to go check it out. So we kind of indulge in that a little bit, and then we have the mango wheat beer for if you bring your mom.
Yeah.
So it's a cool swath of Baton Rouge.
Yeah. So I guess in the IPA sector, between Louisiana microbreweries, is it still like a fight, or is it a fight between Jucifer and Ghost in the Machine?
Different beers.
Really? Okay. Because they're both considered IPAs, right?
Yeah, Ghost is a double, so it's 10% or 12%, something around there, and Jucifer's 8, 7.5, something like that. So different price points, different beers. I feel like Ghost is a little, especially in outside of Louisiana, it's a little more heralded.
Yeah. That's like a beer nerd's like.
Yeah. I got some double dry hop Ghost, luckily, and just out of curiosity put it on craft beer. Like, hey, I have this to trade. And I got some pretty good offers. I drank it, but
yeah. People look for that.
Yeah.
That's kind of one that people look for.
Yeah. So Jucifer doesn't quite have the same cachet, but I think more people drink it. So, because it's a little bit cheaper and it's a little more approachable. It's not a double, it's a single, and it's super juicy and citrusy and fresh tasting. And I think Ghost is a little more sophisticated for the average beer drinker, but people drink both of them. Like,
and we have the same thing in the cigar world. Yeah.
You see somebody's grandpa, like, I'll take a Ghost in the Machine. You're like, okay, cool. Yeah. Good for you, man.
That's funny. Oh, I got to ask you about this, this topic with what was going on with like the CBD infused drinks in Louisiana.
It's going on right now. So
what can you explain about it? What
CBD? I don't know if it's on the chopping block the same way, but definitely
for those who don't know, listening outside Louisiana, we don't. The only thing with cannabis is that it's medically legal.
We have
not recreational.
We have medical cannabis. It's mostly, especially in like New Orleans, Baton Rouge is decriminalized. You go out to White Castle or something, I wouldn't want to get caught with it. But it's mostly decriminalized here. But the only way you can legally consume actual cannabis is through medical.
Okay.
There's this farm bill. I don't know exactly what it is that semi-legalized nationally hemp products.
Or hemp products, yeah.
But all hemp is weed with less high concentration of THC. So the loophole is that you can get a bunch of hemp and distill it down into a few milligrams that is potent. And then so there's gummies and drinks, and even Urban South is brewing their own seltzer with it.
I've seen that brand Louis Louis.
Louis Louis is great.
You guys saw that?
We saw Louis Louis.
Okay. Because I saw it at Rouse's, even like at the supermarket.
Well,
I'm like, holy cow! Wait, this is legal?
So it's on the chopping block. People are kind of have kind of focused on it as something that is an issue, which doesn't seem to be that way. Yeah. But or I guess politicians have. But I think they waited too long because it's ubiquitous now. Like my wife's friend, who is not was not an enthusiast before, is like, oh, I got these at the grocery store, like they're pretty good, and like I don't get a hangover and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, like they're cool. So I think too many people have tried them and not like now
had a bad experience.
Yeah, now people are like, wait, you're trying to take what? You're trying to take Louis Louis out of Albertsons? Like, seems like a little much. So I'm hoping it goes the other way. Even though the cannabis industry kind of would put a dent in the alcohol industry just because it's similar users or whatever, I still think that there's a place for it, and it doesn't seem like something that needs to be regulated. But I don't know. I'm not a politician.
Because I think I remember the first time I saw Louis Louis. That's a brand from New Orleans, right?
They are sourced in New Orleans. It seems like they are produced somewhere. I don't know the rules of it, so I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble.
But if you don't know, we don't know.
But
it's available at even supermarkets.
I think it's like a Jesuit dude or something that was one of the guys that started it. He was really nice. He came up to Beer Garden and did a little presentation to try and get in there. And I ended up picking up at Radio Bar just because I like the flavors of them.
I mean, I've drunk it. They're really tasty. Mm-hmm. But I think when I first saw it at Rouse's, and I might be wrong, but I could have sworn I saw on the label it was 25 milligrams at first. Oh. But then over time, I guess now I think it's 5 milligrams per or something like that, or not?
5 seems to be the standard.
Okay. I don't know if that was something like maybe the state came down on these guys.
I know that.
And then they had to lower it.
Some of the other companies.
There's another brand.
Yeah.
It's another big
Indigo,
brand.
And then there's Crescent 9.
Okay.
And then Drifty is the Urban South one.
Oh, okay. Drifty, huh? Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I believe one of the other ones that had a big dosage one, and then they were like, hey, you
gotta lower it
10 max or whatever, which like even 10's high, like a red.
Yeah, you got the train.
Yeah.
We need to put down the streamers now.
Yeah. I think even in the recreational marijuana industry, I think 5 is about like basic dosage.
Yeah. And they're not a cheap product, are they? Like per unit. I think even at Rouse's, I might be misquoted, but I just remember like, to me, it's like, oh, that's kind of high per
We
unit
sell them for $10 a can at Radio, and we, according to like our regular pricing model, we should sell them for 12.
Oh, okay.
But we try to be on the lower end of pricing, so I feel like we make a good, decent margin on it. It feels fair. So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean they're great. I really think, especially just exposing other people to that, substance or whatever. It's a very approachable method of consumption. So, and it's cool that we get to sell them at bars. I coming from Texas in 2010, if you would have told me in 2024 you're gonna be able to buy THC seltzers at the store, I would have laughed at you.
Oh yeah, everyone would have. Yeah,
it's I thought it was really cool and like just interesting that we had gotten us able to produce that and do all that and bring some money into the state. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think it's next week.
Oh, they start the
they pushed it back, so it's supposed to.
Was it like the constitutional convention that they're talking about?
I guess so.
Yeah,
it's
like the state legislature convenes and all.
It's like a bill, or something. I don't know. That's beyond me.
For the CBD component of it,
the Delta 8 or Delta 9 component of it, which is essentially THC.
Okay,
I think that's what the frustration is on the other side, where it's like y'all legalized weed, like without going through the method of like, hey, we're legalizing marijuana. They're like, you basically did that. So I see the argument. I guess I don't support it. So, but yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm sure we'll hear all about how it plays out.
Yeah.
But just a different industry, it's.
But I was wondering how like that product, the CBD drinks, how that affects like the bar scene. Right, so I guess you got a lot of bars have embraced it as like another add-on item on the menu.
Most of the bars I think that are in our same category sell them.
Mm-hmm.
It's a second license and a different.
Oh, is it really? You have to get a separate, like a particular license to sell that product? Oh, okay. But do you buy it through a distributor, or do you buy it direct from? I guess do you call them breweries or canning operations? I guess they're distributors for that. Kind of like with the alcohol.
Yeah, I think they would call them producers. Some of them were self-distributing for a while.
Okay.
I think some of them still may be. But one of them goes through like a wine broker. And
okay.
What's funny, so beer, if you sign up with distributor XYZ, you're with distributor XYZ until they decide that your contract is over. I don't know if that's how every contract works, but I know that's how it works for like the big guys. So if a brewery is frustrated with a distributor and how they're being marketed or how they're being sold, they don't really have a choice.
Really?
It just kind of is how it goes.
It's the distributor will decide if they cancel it or keep going?
That's why like Red Bull is super powerful, because they are not alcohol. So they're not beholden to a certain distributor. They could pull and be like, we want to go with Coke tomorrow.
Oh.
And so Red Bull has a big stick to wave around.
You have a lot of leverage. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, the beer industry is very, like you were talking about Three Floyds and how we don't have them down here. Like,
do you have any insight as to why they're not here yet? Is it just a matter of supply? Like they just don't have enough?
If I had to guess,
Or is there politics? I'm sure there's politics.
I think there's a little politics too, as it's Louisiana, like you know. But
and that'd be a big brand for any distributor to get, right?
Well, that's what the classic.
So they know.
Stuff,
I guess they have leverage, right? Three Floyds knows that.
I have a feeling.
I'm speculating. I don't have any interest, nor do I know people in the industry.
So we were talking about it with Sam earlier. Sorry, but he was like, "Oh, what's up with all the breweries? Like, how's the beer scene going?" And I'm like, "Well, a lot of them are going to self distribution because the bubbles kind of popped. It's not." There's not as much to go around. People are a little more thrifty, especially in the last couple of years. I think people open it up a little bit more now. But so, and then we had all that artificial inflation from COVID where like everybody got checks and could float their business for a little bit. And then I think all the chickens kind of came home to roost and they're like, this might not be as profitable as I thought it was. So they pulled out a distro and they're doing brewery only, which is way more profitable. I mean, like a pint of beer could cost somebody 16 cents as opposed to a couple bucks once it gets down the chain of distribution. So they're going to brewery only, which is sad, but I'm glad they're staying open. And I think you're going to see more St. Arnold. I think you're going to see more Sierra Nevada. I think you're going to see more of that kind of, for lack of a better term, OG brewery that they're big businesses as is. They have those corporate contracts. They have all that stuff where they're going to be able to fill that void that's kind of left by like, who pulled out? Flying Tiger pulled out, and Juicy's not available in the market anymore. They're only in Monroe.
Oh.
Or NOLA is no longer in. You can't buy Hopatulis at Calandria's anymore because they pulled out of distribution. So somebody's got to fill that gap. There's going to be those extra 10 taps at Beer Garden or whatever that need to get filled. So we're doing a little more Euro, some more German beers and stuff like that, and then some more classics. Pale Ale, Sierra Pale Ale, Lagunitas IPA, that kind of stuff. So those guys are going to, I think, have a little bit of a resurgence. So I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Three Floyds in the market eventually.
Okay.
But right now, I think everyone, at least for the last few years, we're like so locally focused that the outside stuff kind of took a back burner. Like even the Jester King we were talking about earlier, they get like one drop of that a year. So,
that's like one of these sought after allocated?
Yeah.
ones?
I mean, not this beer in particular, but just that brewery.
Okay.
Like they're in Austin. They service the Texas market. Houston's bigger than the entire population of Louisiana. So that market's so big for them that we kind of get, what they can send. And they only do it a couple times a year. So it's just, the beer industry's so funny because everywhere else it's like, oh, you want your product out all the time. Well, it's like, I don't want my product going bad on the shelf or in the back of the bar or whatever. So they're a little more conservative with like amounts that they brew and send and all that kind of stuff because they don't want shelf sitters and they don't want their product going bad. And then the next time they come to sell you something, you're like, well, I still have 3 6-packs of that.
Right.
Like, what are you going to do? So they're a little more miserly, especially in these last few years where I think before they would just flood the market with whatever. Like, oh, we're doing a drop. We'll bring in 100 kegs. It's now they're like, how about 30? Which is, I mean, it's nice for exclusivity, but it's like we had Burial Surf Wax, a brewery out of Asheville, North Carolina. It's a West Coast IPA, one of my favorites, super cool brewery. And we got 2 kegs. And we only got 2 because somebody else didn't buy their other one. Wow. So we were only going to get 1. And it's exciting because you're like, oh, I got 2 of the 5 in the state or whatever.
Wow.
But
it's
also
nice
like,
competitive.
oh, it was so good. And
good.
I wish we had 3. I wish we had 5.
Wow.
I'd be able to sell it all summer if we did, but it's there's beers that I will never have again. Like it's just that's just the reality. Same thing, I'm sure there's cigars.
It happens in cigars, yeah.
Yeah.
There we call the one and dones that were phenomenal. And if we knew that, and it's weird, like with the way we buy those one and dones, I'm sure it's the same thing with you guys, with the beer industry. Like a vendor of ours will approach us and say, hey, we got this new brand. And sometimes they don't do a good enough job or at least clarify that, hey, this is a one and done, or this could be a recurring thing, or maybe this is a once a year thing. They don't always say that because my theory is that sometimes, look, ideally you want a recurring seller, but they don't want to just announce that and it's a flop and then they look bad when they got to pull it out the market or be done. So I think a lot of them just kind of leave it open-ended.
They like
just
their
say
flexibility.
Like it's one and done. And then it happens to be a blend that's actually really good. And everyone goes crazy.
Well,
and then they sold out and it's like, oh man, we got this great blend and people love it. Do we stick to our guns and keep it one and done, or do we like say, oh, next year we just happen to make another batch? It's weird how that works.
Yeah, I mean, they like their flexibility, and it makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't
It's
wanna,
business too. It's just,
yeah.
But our job as a great or trying to be a great retailer is like trying to decipher and navigate. All right, which one is really gonna do well? Which is gonna be a dud? So I mean, and we don't want to just risk and put all our dollars into this one SKU that might be a dud and it just sits on the shelf. So we tend to maybe err on the side of safety and just bring a little bit. But it hurts when it sells out right away and it's actually really good. So I'm sure
God
you guys have
forbid,
to.
Someone makes it their everyday smoker.
Yeah, I know.
And then
that's
you're like,
actually, that's true. Like, then I got to be careful who I sell it to, because if they like it, they want that every time they come in. And yeah, they get frustrated when they realize, like, oh, I can't get it again. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But then I'm like, yeah, dude,
but there's always going to be another one. There's going to be another.
Yeah. Nobody else got to try it. You got to try it. So, I mean,
that's a good way to frame that.
Yeah.
Better to have loved than lost.
Yeah.
Loved that all.
But it's funny, like, Parrish does their Greetings From series, which are like these sours.
I think it's cool. That's a cool concept.
So cool. And they They did Tiki Island, which is outside of Galveston, and so I just beamed about that. But
how is that? You drank it?
Yeah. Their sours are awesome.
Yeah.
So it's everything. This newest one is Greetings from Cypermort.
I saw that. I didn't get a chance to try that.
I don't know where it is. We have it on tap. I have a bunch of kegs.
Okay.
At beer garden. So if you want to come by, I'd love to buy you one.
Absolutely.
But,
and y'all do the growlers to go, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people don't do them as much. We do the cans too, the crowlers. So they can can it for you right there.
And you can take, like, the consumer can take that home to go.
Yeah.
Because I did, that was the last time I saw you. I think it was in the middle of the pandemic. Maybe in 2021. I think I did like kind of a drive-through.
Yes. That's when we first started
I think it was those crowlers
Mm-hmm.
I got. That's what it was, yeah.
Yeah. We had
I
a
think
bunch
I
of
asked
beer.
your suggestion. I forget what it was, but it was delicious.
It's probably from Greetings Grand Isle and that kind of stuff. But,
maybe it was.
But
I just thought it was a cool concept of, man, I can go to this bar. And during the lockdowns, it was weird. We couldn't really attend, but it was, I guess, a way for bars to make money.
Yeah.
And survive.
We had so much beer. And I was like, this stuff's going to die if we don't do something with it. Because it's not like whiskey where it's like, all right, put it on the shelf.
You can age it. Yeah.
And we'll keep a stout for a long time. Like sometimes we'll condition it for a year or something like that. But like an IPA or something like that is 6 months maybe. And so we're like, we don't know how long it's going to be. So we tried to sell as much tap beer as we could the last day that we were open. And then they're like, what are we going to do with this stuff? And I was like, we could get a crowler machine. And they're like, how much is that? And I told them the price. And they're like, just get it. So then we ended up going to Parrish to get cans from them because we didn't have cans. And it was a really cool experience.
It was a long can too, right?
They're 32 ounces. So they're pretty big.
It's cool. I love it.
But it was cool. I got to go talk to Andrew and walk through the brewery with him and talk to him about sips a little bit and that kind of thing. And so it was I think the shrewder, savvier moves that we did during the pandemic, and they still sell them. So they do pretty well.
That's not like an offering that most bars have, right? That crowler.
Yeah. The machines are kind of expensive.
I'm sure expensive. Yeah.
Yeah.
High barrier to entry, but man, that's such a unique competitive advantage for an operation like you guys to have.
Yeah, I think they'd like to sell more of them, but it definitely, in the instance we're talking about where it's like, that beer was so good, I just need to have it one more time. Like, it's like, hey, take some home. So, I wouldn't have it a month from now, but if you want to wait until Friday and have it with your buddies, like, you get to do that.
Yeah.
So, but like we're talking about Greetings, the Grand Isle, like, people still ask me about it. They're like, when's the Greetings from Grand Isle coming back? I'm like, I don't know.
That was a good one.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't
was
know.
that citrus based?
Yeah, they're all I believe Berliner Weisses, which are German style fruited. But when I think of Berliner, I think it's a little more clean, like a little more light, crisp, where their stuff's a little more fruited.
Mm-hmm.
So it's smoothie almost style. But great. I mean, tasty beers, and like they're so creative and impressive. I Parrish. Yeah.
That's my favorite Louisiana brewery at the moment. I mean, I actually went there for the first time maybe 2 months ago. It's to go to their tap room, and I got to talking to the gentleman. I forgot his name, but he's like, I think he's like one of the brewers. I don't know, or he's involved in like the creation of some of their items.
Those guys are around over there.
Yeah. But it's just, I mean, it's cool space, really friendly people.
Yeah,
you can tell like they love what they're doing. They're like beer nerds,
Super small.
Yeah.
Which
I was surprised by that. Like how small
intimate.
they were.
none of the breweries here have like huge, or at least like, besides Urban South. Urban South is like a big warehouse. Theirs is more like brew space and brew pub, you know. But
I need to try them. I just haven't given Urban South a chance. I've never tried them, so I need to.
If you like
them.
sours, the lime cucumber goza is excellent.
Okay.
We did a beer cocktail with that at Beer Garden. Do like a Pim's Cup with it. But yeah, I mean they're great, and they expanded. They're in Houston. They're trying to be a regional brewery. They actually hired this guy, Don No, who was known in the industry for kind of being a great branding guy,
elevating a company,
yeah, and with this specific purpose of, at least what I've heard, is to become more of a regional brewery. So they have one in Houston now.
Wow.
But yeah, they're great. I really like a lot of their stuff, and super friendly people. They have a little more boots on the ground than other places do, and their guys are awesome. So I don't really have anything bad to say about any of the breweries around here, because it's just beer people are awesome.
Yeah,
they're great folks.
Yeah, they're passionate.
Yeah, it's not. No one is upset to go to work. They're like, cool, I get to do what I like to do and sell good beer, drink good beer, brew good beer, or whatever you do. So it's Urban South's got a good crew, and then man, great beers. Paradise Park used to be my go-to forever. I drank it a ton at radio before I was actually working there. So
yeah. Speaking of like people working in that industry that are happy, I forgot to mention, or I don't know if you know, my father actually worked at a Beta brewery as a brewer back in late 90s, early 2000s, I think.
That's when they were like really fighting the good fight, like some of the only guys brewing craft beer.
Yeah,
around.
I mean, craft beer wasn't really,
especially not down here.
Yeah. I think Louisiana's a little bit late to the game in that space, but I just remember that he would always complain about, I think he was making this, was it the strawberry one that they do? Because he had to like carry these heavy bags of like the extract, and he just hated it. But a perk was, I think he got like, I don't know, maybe 2 cases a week for free, and they just get whatever beer they want.
Yeah.
So at one point we just had stacks of beer. We just couldn't consume it fast enough.
But that was awesome in high school.
What's that? Yeah. So yeah, he had done that before we got into the cigar trade.
Okay.
So.
Consumables, you know, crafty, not a little more sophisticated than working at Miller or something. So.
Yeah. Although, I mean, sure, there's nothing wrong there. I'm sure that's a whole other business, though.
Oh.
When you have to deal with that kind of scale.
Oh, it's incredible.
Have you ever visited like a big macro brewery?
I've been to Guinness in Baltimore. So they don't do the Guinness draught there, but they do like any of the, I think they do the NA there, and then they have a couple different, like they had a golden or something. But any kind of non-classic Guinness, or Smittix, I think is the other one they brew. They
I don't know that, but I've heard that brand, Smittix.
They do all of that in Baltimore. There's like a big beer, I cannot remember what it's called, but that they do that services Maryland, that it's like a light lager that's pretty good, but it's a bigger draw up there than it is down
Not
here.
Killian's, huh?
No, it's I'm gonna Google it just because it's gonna drive me crazy.
Yeah. No, but while you're looking that up, that reminds me of this point I have about Guinness. When I went to England back in '99, I had my first Guinness over there. It tastes so different than the Guinness you get in the U.S. Over there, it just feels like it's thicker mouthfeel, like it's like a meal. It's just so tasty. And when I came back here and to drink Guinness, I was like, man, this is like watered down. Like, this is horrible.
Everyone says that. I have not experienced it, so I have no.
If you go to Europe, you
anecdote.
You got to try the Guinness over there to verify. Maybe I'm wrong, but that was my takeaway back then.
I have heard it is the way that we pour beer. So I know even
that's probably a factor.
Well, we do a blend of CO2 and nitrogen to push everything, and Guinness needs a higher blend of nitrogen than CO2. I don't know exact components of it, but we have a nitro pour at Beer Garden, and push it forward, push it backwards, the whole deal.
Oh, I know there's like a whole ceremony, like pouring it,
like 90 seconds,
and you have like a spoon maybe or something.
Yeah, some people layer with spoons and that kind of thing.
Okay. It takes like a few minutes to actually pour a proper pint. Huh?
I think they do all nitrogen in Europe, if I'm not mistaken, and so I think that's why it has that different mouthfeel. The bubbles are smaller, from what I understand. So like with the CO2 bubble, excuse me, it's a larger bubble, and then that's why that has that silkier feeling. But the can ones are great, I think. I mean, again, I have not had one from Ireland, but you pop them and then just tump them over, and it gives you that head and everything. You don't have to do the backwards, forwards pour or anything. And yeah, I mean, if you're doing, what are they called? Car bombs, like,
oh yeah,
serves you just right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I need to
what's
go.
the car bomb? A Guinness, and you drop a shot of Jameson, is it?
It's Jameson and Irish cream.
Oh, okay.
So it's, gives it that nice cascade effect. And then
you're not really pouring car bombs in beer garden, are you?
No, I mean, I'm sure they have them every once in a while.
Okay.
It doesn't get that rowdy. Like I said, it's a little more sit down, a little more slower paced. So
it's like young working professionals, huh?
Yeah, I'd say it's all over. It's all over. That's why that place is so cool. Because, like I said, it's just so approachable to everybody. And you might see someone's mom there, or you might see a group of business guys, some guys right after a golf trip, some beer nerds or whatever. It's all over the place. It's definitely become.
It's a magnet. Like, to me, it's like one of the top bars in this city.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think they'd be flattered to hear that, and definitely strive for it. So it's definitely carved out its niche. But yeah, such a cool spot, and I'm super glad because, like we were saying, government wasn't always known as like this destination street, so they kind of gambled.
And well, they're doing their part to improve that corridor too.
Yeah, and then all the other guys too that are building over there, and probably Superior to argue they kind of started it all, and then Soji and the rest of the crew, like, they're all contributing to making that corridor
So speaking of that corridor, because there are a lot of food places too, what are some of your favorite spots that you'd like to go in that Government Street area?
I would be remiss to say that not mention Superior. I take my parents there. We have a good relationship with a lot of the bar staff over there because they come blow off steam afterwards.
Yeah, I guess a lot of the service industry people know everyone.
Yeah, we stay up until 2. So we get a lot of people that, I got off at midnight. Like, let me go get a couple drinks.
That's cool.
But yeah, I love, I'd say as far as my favorite restaurants, I'll go outside of Mid-City or not quite, but I love Superior. I love the Overpass Merchant. That's probably one of my favorite places.
Yeah. Dude, I was just there a few weeks ago. They were serving this bread, this appetizer. I think it's St. John's Bakery. Have you heard of this bakery? I think it's like a relatively new, like, small bakery. Anyway, you can't buy anything from the bakery. You can only find them like in supermarkets and like maybe spots like Overpass Merchant. And it was like this sourdough bread that they toasted, had like a butter garlic on top. They like cut it where you can tear it off. Man, it's so good.
Oh,
but their food's incredible at Overpass.
Everything. They had these pork buns forever, these pork belly steam buns that I think I could eat 100 of them. They're so good. And my buddy Remy is the regional manager.
Sam knows Remy. We know Remy.
Another Bulldog alumni.
That's right.
So.
Yeah, he was also Bulldog.
Yeah, he got me over at Bulldog.
Isn't it amazing? Oh, I didn't know that. Isn't it amazing that Bulldog is really like that spot that a lot of service industry people like almost got their learning and education into, like, elevating that
we had
trade and craft.
Super talented crew and just so many people that I always say that was like my first. I learned how to bartend in
Tigerland,
time and pacing and all that stuff in Tigerland, but I really developed my craft over there and started there in Beer Garden. Beer Garden, I always say I grew up at Beer Garden, but I definitely got more interested in like the nuances of bartending at Bulldog, and I learned a lot. Nikki, that's the GM over there, she was a manager at the time, and just learned so much from those guys. Like, loved working there, and it definitely put me on the path to like stay in this industry as opposed to like going and doing something else and trying to go into sales or whatever else. Like, I think it showed me that it could be a career.
Yeah, I've always had respect for people in the bar industry and even like the restaurant, any service based sector like that, because I mean the amount of stress, fast pace, and sometimes you deal with unruly people, especially when you mix alcohol into it. So I always respect people in that trade, and they should really merit more respect than sometimes they get from especially the unruly customers.
I don't think we're over here saving lives or anything.
Yeah,
I always say we're just putting stuff in cups. But
for some clients, they look forward to unwinding. Maybe they had a bad day.
Oh.
And like the good customers realize like this is my sanctuary, and they value the service folk.
Yeah, we're lucky. Like I said, Baton Rouge folks, they're good diners and good bar patrons for the most part. They self-police a lot. So if somebody's being a jerk, usually the other regulars or other patrons are like, hey, you're being a jerk. Yeah. Or come and grab somebody like, hey, this guy's, just to let you know this guy's being one way or another. But no, I agree with you. I think waiters and waitresses especially, they eat it. Yeah. It's hard. So I think people discount that part of it, but you're on your feet. It's a physical job. You're running around. It's definitely a worthy profession, and I think people underestimate how much that like helps their life day to day to be able to go sit down at a good bar, sit down at a good restaurant, and unwind for a second and not worry about all this stuff. Like, okay, we want to be an escape. We want people to feel comfortable here. We want, hey, come hang out in the living room with your buddies.
That's right.
But yeah, I try not to overblow it too much where I'm like, oh yeah, like we're so important. I'm like, no.
But you might. That one patron that really needs you guys and maybe looks at those establishments as like a second home. You never know what you're doing for like their mental health,
Yeah, and we love our folks. That's my favorite thing about Radio Bar is how close and tight knit the little community is, and we have a regular that if he's not there by a certain time, we're like, hey, dude, what's up? Are you good? Yeah. Like, you need us to come grab you? Like, are you straight? Cool. So it's nice, but yeah, I think that's what drew me to it initially was going to the bars in Tigerland, and then I see these guys working there, and it seems so glamorous and fun, and talking to girls and staying up late and bartending, and there, it's theatrical where people are taking their shirts off and jumping on the bar and pouring shots and doing all this stuff. So you're like, man, what's this all about? And I think one of my friend's brothers growing up, and like when he was in high school or early college, he had a part-time bartending job, and I was like, that's pretty cool. And then one guy texted me, the first guy I met at LSU, he actually introduced me to my wife too. Wow. But he changed my life in a bunch of ways. But he called me. He's like, hey, do you want to work at a bar? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, okay. And the only reason he got me hired was because the two lowest guys at Bogey's did the trash. So you had to take all the trash out, like put it in the back of your truck or do whatever and get it to the dumpster. And he was second to last in the totem pole. Oh. So he's like, if I get one more person hired, I don't have to do trash anymore.
To put right below me.
And sure enough, what is it, 13 years later, I'm like, okay, this is my life now. Thanks so much. You didn't want to do trash, and now I'm running a bar. Yeah. But he's actually still in the industry, sort of. He sells Heaven Hill in Denver now. So wow. Sells whiskey up there and works for Southern Glazers, and the industry's infectious. You try to escape, but you really can't.
Well, I know that we've talked more about beer, but I also enjoy wine. You guys serve wine. What's your wine menu like at Beer Garden?
Both of them are pretty limited. Okay. We sell some of the higher end stuff, like they have some Frank family and what is it? Couture. I can't remember what it's called. But
yeah, I like wine. I'm not an expert in it though by any means, but it's very limited basically, huh?
Yeah.
Because you are a beer garden.
Yes, and I think wine is harder to gauge like what people it's kind of a different. You'd have, I think, to have like a really extensive wine list, you'd have to have like a sommelier or something. Yeah. Just somebody that has a little more knowledge. But I think with wine, people are a little more set in their ways where like, I like this brand or that brand. And it's a little more difficult. But I love wine. I just don't. Ready for another one?
Sure.
This is that coffee one. It's a brown ale. Okay. But Great Raft, Shreveport.
Okay. But oh, cool. Creature of Habits. Imperial Coffee Brown Ale.
Yeah, this one's a little stronger.
Okay. I like the, I know a lot of these beer, especially microbreweries, started dating the cans. So I guess to show how fresh they are. Mm-hmm. But I know that there are some beers, not every category, that you can actually age. Yeah. Like cellar even.
Well, we did that with a Pumpkinator one year. A St.
Really?
Arnold Pumpkinator, where we got 2 half barrels of it and we just stashed one.
Okay. And so clean my palate first.
No. So we stashed one.
How many years or how long?
A year.
A year, okay.
Yeah. But like I said, with the IPA, I was talking about this with somebody the other day.
Cheers.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Cheers. It's a little more of a cigar.
Yeah,
Or
definitely a good cigar pairing.
But hops were initially used as a preservative. So that's India Pale Ale. You're shipping your beer from England to India. You're using the hops to keep it fresh. And so when it gets
from spoiling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so now it's the bane of beer's shelf life because all this over hop stuff, if you leave it for too long, you physically can see it falling out of the beer where it starts to settle and sediment in the bottom, and then you get all that bitter all at once instead of it being throughout and spread out and balanced the way.
Or is it like a nice floral flavoring? Huh?
So yeah, I mean, like I wouldn't drink a 6 to 8 month old Jucifer or a 6 to 8 month old Ghost Machine because it's not as fresh but initially it was to preserve it. So it's kind of ironic.
I didn't realize. I didn't think about that.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
It's funny. But yeah, the date definitely. I mean, I think this one might be a little old, but it's the browns hold up a little bit better.
Yeah, they hold up.
One of those probably you'd taste it a little bit sooner. That's got to be within the last month or two.
Oh yeah, March 11th. So that's pretty nice.
Yeah, they pumped that one out. Get a turnaround on it's pretty fast. That was another one that used to be a ubiquitous. Like we have kegs and kegs of it, and we got 2 kegs of it this year. I think might do another drop, but
it's becoming kind of smally.
They're just being, like I said, being a little more conservative with their orders and stuff. So, and Mockler, who's the guys that carry that, I think they didn't have a beer manager for a little bit, so maybe that was part of the thing, but they move fast, so they're fine now.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I was a little disappointed that we didn't get more of that, but that's how it goes. It's beer.
Yeah, you just gotta make do with what you get.
What you have. And we have plenty of stuff.
That's how I rationalize it in the humidor. You know, I used to be like one of those buyers that would try to chase some of these sought after or unicorns. And I just got to the point like, man, why stress about it? If we get it, we get it. If not, there's another dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen choices.
Oh yeah.
You know? And I think even for our industry, consumers are starting to realize that because we get some of these that are sought after, they're hard to get. And I wish I had them. I wish we had enough to sell. But what we also do is the way we get those allocated to us is the performance of our, like the core items, right? That they make all the time, but no one necessarily always gets. So we try to lump them in and bundle them together with the unicorns because if we sell more of the core, we get more unicorns.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same way. And I think,
like bourbon
and you said you don't even want to chase after the unicorns. Like with Radio Bar, with the highly allocated stuff, we get lucky and we get some of the stuff. And
like what's considered allocated in your industry?
I mean, the Buffalo Trace stuff.
Oh yeah. Okay. So, yeah. Okay.
And then I'm sure like the Wild Turkey Master Keep and that kind of stuff. Like you can't just order it, but which is another like iffy kind of thing where they're not supposed to do that, but people still kind of hold stuff back sometimes. And I've been lucky. We have a good relationship with somebody that has a lot of the Sazerac products now. But as far as the Eagle Rares and Blantons and that kind of stuff, I'm like, I'm not chasing it. It's just not worth running around after. Like we'll sell a bottle of it, and then we're gonna wait 6 months for the next bottle. I'm like, rather just tell them like, hey, we don't have it. We'd love to carry it. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's a limited supply, and we're just not on that list. So, we have an Elmer T. Lee over there, something like that. Another like higher end bourbon that I think probably stands up to that Buffalo Trace stuff. But it's very competitive. But it's funny, somebody like Fred's, who's not the typical clientele for a Pappy or something. If they sell so much of the other stuff,
like other core
they'll
stuff
get
that they need,
that Pappy in there, which I think is cool,
right?
Because it's not going
kind
to
of like a reward, for helping us out.
It's not going to the snobbiest snob bar, it's going to the people that did the spending and deserved it and all that stuff. And I would love to get a hold of them. We got one at Bulldog, and I had a drop. I mean, a drop. And we had one from one of our owners' personal collection he brought when we first opened Beer Garden, just chasing stuff. And we opened a bottle, and he Googled it real fast and goes, "We should open that bottle."
Oh, yeah.
But so I had some. I think it's the Rip Van Winkle, the old Rip Van Winkle.
Okay.
But I haven't had any of the Pappy 10 or Pappy 12 or anything like that. So
Yeah.
I'm still chasing them just like everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Now, are there beers like that to that level?
Yes and no. I think so.
First of all, I guess if they're even available for distribution in Louisiana,
that's a big part of it.
I guess people listening outside Louisiana maybe they're not familiar with like what is it, the 3 steps? There are 3 tiers of distribution of alcohol.
Yeah.
It's not like a bar can just order direct from a brewery.
No, you have to go through a distributor.
Okay.
So they kind of have a lot of the power and with that kind of stuff. But like we were talking about earlier,
like with 3 Floyds, if
well,
there's no
Ghost in the
distributor
Machine in Texas might be a super sought after beer. Where like
here we can get it.
Yeah. Where a Jester King here is like, oh, cool, you have that, where they're all over specs in Texas.
Yeah.
And so I say kind of like Treehouse out of Boston. Excellent IPAs, one of the best breweries in the country.
Okay.
We don't get any of their stuff. So if I saw a Treehouse beer on a shelf somewhere, I'd be like, that's a
you're
unicorn.
Yeah.
You know, but if you live in Boston, you're like, oh, that's another grocery store beer. So it's I think a little
depends
more
where you're at.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's one called the Alchemist. I believe it's on the West Coast.
I've heard of Alchemist.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was going to ask you about, you ever heard of Heady Topper?
I think they're
They're
the
out
same
of
company.
New Hampshire?
Oh, okay. I thought opposite coast. I
don't
thought
know.
it was on.
Okay.
But yeah, those are 2 that like here, I've never tried them. I'd love to have them.
Because I don't think they even really distribute. I think it's one of those you got to buy at the brewery.
Probably so.
Because a friend of mine who lives in New Hampshire, he had brought me some one year. Because I asked him, like, hey, when you come before, can you get over there? And I don't know, maybe it's Vermont. I don't know.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of, I feel like that's New England.
Yeah,
Pale
New England
Ale.
somewhere, yeah.
They all kind of.
But it's one of those that are like sought after among beer people.
Yeah. What's the other one? Pliny the Younger or Pliny the Elder?
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. I've never drunk that.
Yeah, I think I've had that before. I can't remember. I have to look at my Untapped. But that's another one where it's like, oh, if you have it here, it's a huge deal. But if you have it in LA, it's like, they get those once a month.
So I know there's a European version like what we're talking about with a brand called West Vleteren. You ever heard of that?
No, I have not.
So look into that.
The one that
West Vleteren. I think it's an Abbey.
Okay.
It's an Abbey beer. Trappist beer. I know back in the early 2000s when I got into like the microbrews, a buddy of mine was educating me about that beer. It was like really sought after back then. I don't know if it is today because I really haven't been keeping up with the beer industry for like the last 5-10 years. But that was like regarded, at least back then, as like the best beer in the world. I guess it got some awards, but you really couldn't find it in the States. It was only in Europe. And I think one year the monastery had to raise funds. So they decided to make an allocation available in the U.S. And it was a big deal because, every state got so much allocation. And in Louisiana, it was only 3 retailers that got a chance to get it. The Whole Foods in Baton Rouge, the Whole Foods in, I can't remember if it was in Metairie or the Whole Foods in New Orleans. And then Stein's Deli, uptown. They were the only 3 retailers, and they were already accounted for. Like that was one of those things you had to know people or whatever. Yeah. And so the monks aren't like in it to like make money. They don't care. They just sell that beer to raise funds for their monastery. But if you live in that area, because I think they're in Belgium, like if you're a local, you can get it. And they even have I was on their website one year looking at like how to buy it. They have a mail order or delivery system, but it's only for those with an address in that city or that country.
McKellar has a similar, which they're kind of I feel like that early 2000s era.
Okay,
but they're from Denmark. He's regarded as one of the better brewers in the
McKellar.
world. McKellar, okay, yeah. And they were very we had a lot of them in the market when I first started at Bulldog,
Oh,
but now they're completely absent. Like you couldn't find it.
yeah.
But they were one, like you go on their website and they're like delivery, and you're like, oh sweet, and it's like for Denmark. Like,
Yeah,
and you're like,
yeah,
oh no.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
But yeah, beer's funny.
Yeah, it is funny. I love hearing these
Yeah.
stories, like how it works with distribution and allocation.
It's crazy. And
customer
and,
preferences.
Yeah, and you know, something that I nerd out about, nobody else cares. You know, it's
Right,
the same
I
thing
know.
with you.
Yeah,
Like where
same
you're
thing
like,
here.
oh,
I
cool, this
nerd out
is
with
a
cigars.
certain wrap or certain blend of
Yeah.
tobacco or whatever, and people are like, cool, which one's good?
Yeah.
But yeah, I beer's fun because it's so futile, and it's like, you know, even if you find one that you had years ago, if it's an old can, it doesn't taste right, and it's
Yeah.
you feel like you're chasing the dragon all the time, and yeah, it's super fun, and just the personalities in beer are strong and cool people.
Very similar in the cigar world.
Mhm.
So, well, look, man, I appreciate you coming in today. It was awesome having you.
Thank you so
we can
much.
keep talking because I'm very inquisitive about the beer industry because there are parallels to the cigar world.
Mhm.
But no, I'd love to have you on again. If you ever want to like update us with what's going on in Radio Bar or Beer
Yeah.
Garden, we'd love to have you. Maybe you can be our beer authority. You know,
Dude, please, if y'all
We
ever
need,
have
like,
any
a beer
questions,
guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love talking about beer, and
actually, for anyone listening, shoot us an email or text if you have any beer questions. Maybe on a future show, we can ask you and get those questions answered.
yeah, please let me know. I wouldn't qualify myself as an expert by any means, but I am a.
But
I
you're
love
in the
beer,
industry. You're a
and yeah,
professional. I mean, you're a buyer. you
Yeah,
know?
I know a little more than the average bear,
Mhm.
so I do like talking about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you ever have any questions, please let me know.
Cool. Well, look, before we sign off, would you do me the favor of engaging in our final puff
Of course.
segment? It's like a rapid fire round of questions. So number 1, Tabasco, Crystal, or other?
Oh, crystal all day.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Big crystal guy.
All right. Good. Number 2. No, it's been a while since I've done these. Who would you want to smoke a cigar with? Any person you could smoke a cigar with, alive or deceased?
Hunter S. Thompson.
Ooh.
I think he would be a super rad guy to talk to. Yeah, and I believe he enjoyed a good cigar. So
He was definitely a tobacco user.
Yeah.
With cigarettes, with the, I guess, the little the cigarette holder. I'm sure he may have dabbled in cigars.
yeah, I feel like we could find something to talk about.
And if not, he would. If you offered him, I'm sure he would try it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one, man. I hadn't heard that one yet. All right, number 3, Desert Island cigar.
Ooh, I mean, the Fuente short story.
Nice.
Big fan.
Okay. Number 4, and I think these are all out of order, but anyway, favorite travel destination. If you can only choose one place to travel, or favorite vacation spot.
Yeah. I really loved the Bahamas.
Okay.
It was we went to Hope Island, and it's feels like you're in another planet, so I would say that.
The Bahamas, huh?
Mhm.
Okay. And number 5, who would you want to hear or see on a future podcast here?
Let me think. That's a great question. I mean, I think Remy would be great. Remy Ferguson over at
At Overpass?
At
Is it
Overpass,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay.
and then right across the street, Mike from DeJulio Brothers would be an interesting dude to talk to.
Oh, yeah.
He's been in Baton Rouge for a long time, doing really good business. I think one more.
Yeah. And DeJulio Brothers, for people not knowing, that's a Italian restaurant.
I was
Yeah.
I mistakenly did not mention them when I was talking about my favorite restaurants because they're amazing.
Okay.
But if you can get it, a guy I know loves smoking cigar, Justin Vincent. He works for TAF, former Super Bowl national championship, all that stuff. But he loves smoking cigars.
Okay.
Super cool guy. I'm sure he has a million good stories.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, hey, appreciate you coming on, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take care, everyone. Thanks again.
Thank you.